And my understanding is there are some regulars who are with us this evening, and there's some newer people that are with us this evening. So I'll try to give a little background, especially for the newer persons, and then we'll carry forward. So it's just pretty much for everybody. This is the appearance day of Srivasa Thakura. Now, many of you, even newer, you know that very recently we observed the appearance day of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaura Purnima. Big festival on the appearance day, on the Purnima day. And Srivasa Thakura is one of the 5 important personalities in Gaura Leela. Many of you know the mantra. Here's the mantra. We can say the mantra together. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So the Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, that's everybody else. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, all the assembled devotees. And then there's 5. They're known as the Pancha Tattva. Pancha Tattva, 5 truths. In relation to this is a little background from Chaitanya Charitamrita, biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. There are, in these 5, so if you're looking at the altar, here's Lord Chaitanya in the middle, Lord Nityananda at the first expansion. In Krishna Lila, that's Balaram. So as Balaram is to Krishna, Nityananda is to Lord Chaitanya. And they're the same tattva. They're Vishnu tattva category. You with me? Vishnu tattva category. And then way over here is Advaita. Advaita is non-different than Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is also Vishnu tattva. So Vishnu tattva, Vishnu tattva, Vishnu tattva. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita. Now we go this way. Sri Gadadhar. When you see Radha Krishna, Krishna's here and Radha is here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here, Gadadhar Pandit is here. Gadadhar Pandit is in the Shakti Tattva category. Vishnu Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, Shakti Tattva. He, Gadadhar, is in a male form. Gadadhar Pandit in Gaura Leela accepted sannyas. When Nimai Pandit accepted sannyas and became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also accepted sannyas. They were friends from childhood, both very renounced, and he became a sannyasi. But in category of tattva, Shakti tattva. And then way at the far end is Srivasa, who is Jiva tattva. And as a Jiva tattva, he's the manifestation of the Lord's Bhakti Shakti. Just like Narada Muni, in Krishna Lila, he's Narada Muni, or Narada Muni's expansion as Srivasa. And so his just as Narada Muni was empowered by Krishna to carry forward devotion to him, or he was bearing, he's a Shakti Vaishavatar, Narada Muni, bearing Bhakti Shakti. So similarly, Srivasa has a very special role to play in Lord Chaitanya's Leela, we're going to hear some things about his life. Now, he, both Advaita at the far end and Srivasa, they were the other far end. They were elder. They were like the age of his father, Nimai Pandit's father, or Lord Chaitanya's father. Advaitacharya was a little older, and Srivasa was a little younger than his father, but like his father in age. So that was the village relationship. And because Narada Muni understood that Krishna is the personality of Godhead, similarly Srivasa understood that Lord Chaitanya is the personality of Godhead, and that was their relationship. And we'll see as we go forward some of the Leela that took place during their lifetime. Here's a short reference from Adi Leela, chapter 1. There are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivasa Thakura is foremost. So devotee, meaning in this case, Jiva. There's a book that describes the who's who in Krishna Leela, Gaura Leela. The title of that book is the very first line, Gaura Guna Desh Dipika. So, reference is being made in Chaitanya Charitamrita to what you see on the screen. In Gaura Guna Desh Dipika, Srivasa Pandit, or Srivasa Thakura, is described as an incarnation of Narada Muni, and Sri Ram Pandit, his younger brother, is said to be an incarnation of Parvat Muni, a great friend of Narada's. Srivasa Pandit's wife, Malini, is celebrated as an incarnation of the nurse Ambika, who fed Lord Krishna with her breast milk, and his niece, that Srivasa Pandit had a niece, the mother of Vrindavan, Thakur Vrindavan Das, the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, was the sister of Ambika in Krishna Leela. So there was the wife of Srivasa and his niece, Narayani. She had a place in Krishna's Leela also. Ambika. We understand from the description of Chaitanya Bhagavat that after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's acceptance of the sannyas order, Srivasa Pandit left Navadvip, possibly because of feeling of separation, and domiciled at Kamarahata. Their two brothers were Sripati and Srinidhi. So this is a little description of the family. There's 4 brothers. The oldest of the 4 brothers is our topic for this evening. Srivasa Pandit. Srivasa Pandit had a brother, Sri Ram Pandit, and 2 other brothers, Sripati and Srinidhi, also Pandit, because they're brahmanas, and learned brahmanas, therefore Pandit. So that's from Adi Leela chapter 10, continuing at all of Navadvipas are charged with his, Lord Chaitanya's, Sankirtan movement, and his headquarters were situated at the house of Srivasa Thakura and Sri Advaita, the 2 ends, Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, and the Pancha Tattva. Because they were elder. They were the 2 chief householder disciples. These 2 learned heads of the Brahmana community were the most ardent supporters of Lord Chaitanya's movement. So what happened historically was Nimai Pandit, there were certain events, but he started the chanting, the public chanting of the holy name. But the public chanting wasn't in the public, it was in the house of Srivas. And the house of Srivas was little bigger than this. You know, the classic house was a multiple families living in one large compound. And there was a wall surrounding the house. It wasn't like a house, it was, you know, extended family kind of a house. And so many family members, related family members, were in the house of Srivas. And every evening, people would engage in their daily activities. And in the evening time, they would come to the house of Srivas and have kirtan. And the gate was locked because they only wanted devotees. They didn't want, you know, naysayer people to come and, you know, rain on the parade. They wanted a nice kirtan, and it was ecstatic kirtan. And so it was his headquarters every night for a long time, for years. Avir bhava is a Sanskrit term. It means it's a manifestation of Lord Chaitanya when he appears, even though he's personally not present. For example, when Srivasa Thakura performed Sankirtan, everyone felt the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even in his absence. Same chapter, Adi Lila, chapter 20, chapter 10. So sometimes, there's another circumstance. When Lord Nityananda would dance, Lord Chaitanya would come. And one could feel his presence although he wasn't present. It was as if he was present, he was present. But so with Lord Nityananda's dancing and Srivasa Thakura's chanting, he would make himself known. He, Srivasa Thakura, was elder to the degree that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Nimai Pandit was born, his wife, Malini, came and offered worship to the personality of Godhead and offered gifts to the personality of Godhead. And she plays another special role. Again, it's Srivasa's wife. This other special role was when Lord Nityananda joined Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. Nityananda was a bit of an avaduta. He behaved like a madman sometimes. So one of his madman activities was he wouldn't eat unless Malini fed him. So this is a little drawing. It's showing she's feeding him with her own hand, and otherwise he wouldn't eat. And the drawing is also showing there's a crow sitting on the windowsill. So one day when she was feeding Nityananda, the crow flew into the room, and the crow picked up a little Achman cup and a little ghee pot and flew out the window with the ghee pot. And Malini started crying, thinking, oh, this is for my husband's worship, and he'll be very unhappy with me. And she was crying and crying. So Lord Nityananda said, don't worry. And he ordered the crow, I guess, Bengali language or something. He ordered the crow to come back, and the crow flew back and dropped the ghee right in front of Malini and flew out the window again. And she fell to the ground and fainted because she understood that the power, this person who is an avaduta who won't eat unless she feeds him, has the power to order the crow to bring back the pot of ghee. And she understood he's not an ordinary person, but he has this kind of behavior that's most unusual. So here's another nice verse. This is this very second verse of the entire, oh boy. There we go. the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilila, chapter 1, verse number 2. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanandao Sahoditao Godadaya Pushpavantao Chitrao San Dao Tamo Nudao. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously. Note, the sun and the moon don't arise simultaneously. When the sun sets, the moon comes up. When the moon sets, the sun comes up. But they arose simultaneously on the horizon of Goda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. And that's the relationship between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And then, of course, in the painting behind them, that's Advaita Acharya. And then behind the two of them, that's Srivasa. So we heard briefly that the house of Srivasa was the Kirtan headquarters of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there was wonderful pastimes. Here's a particular pastime. Narayani, if you remember, she's a nurse, a niece of Srivasa. Something happened. During the time of Lord Chaitanya's incarnation, Narayani, a niece of Srivasa Thakura, used to eat the remnants of food left by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Narayani, who was his niece, later became the mother of one of the chief biographers, the chief biographer Vrindavan Das Thakur, and he became the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat. This Vrindavan Das Thakur is described sometimes as the Vyasadeva of Gaura Lila. So the pastime that Lord Chaitanya performed in Navadvip, this Chaitanya Bhagavat was written first, chronologically, composed before Chaitanya Charitamrita. So largely, the Lila that's described is up until Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. That is, his pastimes while in Navadvip. Very lightly he wrote about other pastimes after his leaving Navadvip, because he was from Navadvip, and he knew the pastimes intimately, and he had deep realizations about those pastimes, and he wrote with realization and, very authoritative historical record of the early life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Narayani was his mother. Narayani was Srivasa Thakur's niece. When Krishna was a child, he was nursed by a woman named Ambika. We heard this already. Who had a younger sister named Kimbalika. The same Kimbalika was Narayani. You have an ocean of patience. You have an ocean of patience. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but the ocean of patience. And my guess is wait a few minutes and the child will be back and doing the same thing. Most likely. He'll get a little restless and come back and start. Shanti. Okay. There's, at the house of Srivasa, there was a blasphemy by a fellow named Gopal Chappal. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly led congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in the house of Srivasa Thakura every night for 1 full year. This ecstatic chanting was performed with the doors closed so that non-believers who came to make fun could not gain entrance. Thus, The non-believers almost burned to ashes and died out of envy. To retaliate, they planned in various ways to give trouble to Srivas. One person named Gopal Chappal, he just outside where the gate was locked, he placed paraphernalia for worshipping Durga. Just outside this door. So this evening, here's how the worship was done. The upper portion of a plantain leaf, there was paraphernalia for worship, such as Oda, Pula, turmeric, vermilion, red sandalwood, and rice. Those are items of paraphernalia for Durga worship. He placed a pot of wine beside all this. So the kirtan was going on inside the house of Srivas. And when the kirtan was over, he came outside and saw this paraphernalia in the pot of wine. So he brought everybody to, hey, come see. I'm worshiping Durga. And just smiling, joking. And the brahmanas that knew better, they took exception. He said to them, gentlemen, every night I worship goddess Bhavani. Since the paraphernalia for the worship is present here, now all you respectable brahmanas and members of the higher caste can understand my position. And they took exception. All the assembled gentlemen exclaimed, what is this? Who has performed such mischievous activities? They called for a sweeper who threw all the items of worship far away and cleansed the place. Then Gopal Chappal had a little problem. He got leprosy. Leprosy attacked Gopal Chappal, and blood oozed from the sores all over his body, incessantly covered with germs and insects biting him all over his body. He felt unbearable pain, burning and distress. Gopal Chappal left the village. Later, Gopal Chappal was met by Nimai Pandit, who was just traveling about, and Gopal Chappal sitting there like a leprosy-ridden person. He spoke to Nimai Pandit because he was elder. Nimai Pandit was younger, so he's calling him by village relationship, I'm your uncle, and you're my nephew. Please see how greatly this attack of leprosy has afflicted me. As an incarnation of God, you are delivering so many fallen souls. I am also a greatly unhappy fallen soul. Kindly deliver me by your mercy. Nimai didn't agree. Oh, sinful person, envious of pure devotees, I shall not deliver you. Rather, I shall have you bitten by these germs for many millions of years. You have made Srivasa Thakura appear to have been worshipping goddess Bhavani. Simply for this offense, you will have to fall down to hellish life for 10 million births. It didn't stick like that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after accepting the renounced order, went to Jagannath Puri and then came back to Kulia. Then that sinful man took shelter of the Lord who told him, you have committed an offense against the lotus feet of Srivasa Thakura. You must beg for his mercy. And if he gives you blessings and you do not commit such sins again, you'll be freed from all these reactions. So there's the deity in Mayapur. On the far end, on the far right, that's the deity of Srivasa. Then the Brahmana, Gopal Chappal, went to Srivasa Thakura, took shelter of his lotus feet, and by Srivasa Thakura's mercy, he was freed from all sinful reactions. Just like that. It's a standard, it's different, but similar to Durvasa Muni offending Maharaj Ambarish. Similar. So Lord Vishnu said, you have to go get blessings and seek forgiveness. from Ambrish, because he's the one that you offended. So that's what happened with Gopal Chapu. There's a pastime at the house of Srivas where it's called Mahaprakash Leela. One day out of these, for every day they're having kirtan all night long until the rising of the sun in the morning. And one evening, all of a sudden, Nimai had a change of mood. And he went and directly sat on the altar, the throne of Vishnu, and declared loudly, "Worship me." So everyone was startled because he's, Nimai Pandit, not the Supreme Lord, please worship me. So they did. They went to the Ganges, they got big clay pots filled with water, poured the water on him to perform Abhishek. And after Abhishek, then they dried him. Then after drying him, they put new garments on, after garments and garlands and ornaments, and performed arti. He's sitting right there on the altar. And then one by one, he called the devotees forward and disclosed truths about them that nobody knew. They knew that nobody knew, but he knew. He was declaring his omniscience. One evening called Mahaprakash Leela. So Srivas in particular led this Abhishek and other forms of worship, sitting on a cot. Now this is in Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, rather than seating on the throne, but it also speaks of seated on the throne. So he's on a cot. The Lord exhibited transcendental opulence. And here's some of the descriptions. It's also found in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So amongst the transcendental opulence, here's some examples. He called for Gangadas, nice devotee. And he said, Gangadas, do you remember when there was a Yavana king with his soldiers that was coming to attack, and you had daughters, and you were afraid that your daughters might be molested by this Yavana king and his soldiers? You remember that? And you went to the bank of the Ganges, and there were no boats, and all of a sudden there was a boat, and that boat took you across the Ganga, and you and your daughters were safe. Do you remember that? He didn't inform anybody. He said, I was the boatman. And after taking you across the river, I returned to Vaikuntha, because this was some number of years ago. Although you told nobody of this, I know. Then there was a servant in the house of Srivas whose name was Duki, because she was always sad. So he renamed her, he pinched her cheeks and called her Suki. From day forward, you're now Suki. Sridhar, Kolavechar Sridhar, he has a nice personality. I'm going to do little stories. Kolavechar, his name was Sridhar. Kolavechar indicated his profession. His profession was he was a Vaishya who made his livelihood by selling products from banana trees. Now, in Mayapur, two kinds of trees are abundantly available: coconut trees and banana trees. So he kept a residence near the Ganga, near a grove of banana trees. So he took the banana trees and made banana leaves. People would eat off of banana leaf. They didn't have metal plates. Or he would stitch them together and make leaf cups, or bananas or banana flowers. Banana products, they're abundant. Just climb up the tree and you get all the banana products. And he would just sit each day on a cloth, put all his wares out on the cloth, and sell banana products. Thus, Kolavechar. And half of what he earned, he would worship the Ganges, and the other half he would maintain himself. But he didn't earn much. Didn't earn much. He had more holes in his clothes than clothes, and the cottage that he lived had a straw roof that had more holes in the roof than, when it rained. It rained sometimes in Navadvip. Everything would get soaked. But that's how he lived. He was very poor. But half of what he earned, he gave for the worship of Ganges. And regularly, not daily, but regularly, Nimai Pandit, young Brahmin boy, would go to the place, detailed descriptions, and had Vaishya talk with Kolavechar Sridhar, saying, I'm a Brahmin. So you give me a fair price, bargaining. How much for your bananas? How much for your banana flowers? How much for this? Oh, that's way too much. Give me a better price. And, Vaishya talk, honoring and bothering. And Sridhar finally said, look, take whatever you want. Don't bother me. Don't pester me like this. Stop teasing me. No. I'll give you a fair price, but I'll give you a fair price. And so back and forth and back and forth. And in addition to his devotion to the Mother Ganges, Kolavechar Sridhar became very attached to Nimai Pandit. So during this Mahaprakash Leela, it was at night, and there's no street lights at that time. So he said, you go down this road along the side of the Ganges, and you'll find Kolavechar Sridhar, bring him here. And if you can't find him, just listen, because all night long, he's chanting the holy name loudly. The neighbors think it's because his stomach is growling, and so he's in so much pain, he just chants so loudly. But that's not it. He has love for Krishna. Find him that way. So they found him, they brought him. When they brought Kolavechar Sridhar, he showed him his form of Krishna right in front of everybody. This is therefore Mahaprakash Leela. There was another devotee whose name was Murari Gupta. He was also like his father of age. And by his name was Murari, and his profession was a physician. Thus Gupta, by profession, a physician. And Murari Gupta had great devotion for Lord Ramachandra and great devotion at the same time for Lord Chaitanya, or Nimai Pandit at the time. So Nimai, he would regularly come to see Nimai Pandit and offer respects to him because he was a Brahmana and he was a physician. So one time Nimai and Nityananda made a request. You're always chanting Ram's name. My request is you just chant Krishna's name. Just chant Krishna's name. Go to your home every day, you chant Ram's name. Chant Krishna's name today. So he went to his home and he couldn't because he was attached to Ram. He was in the mood of Hanuman. He couldn't. So he came back the next morning crying, saying, please take away this instruction because I can't do it. And Nimai Pandit said, I was just testing you. I know you're through and through devotion. Your devotion to Lord Ramachandra is like that of Hanuman to Lord Ramachandra. I was just testing you. Go on, chant Ram's name. That's just fine. So when this Mahaprakash Leela happened, he called Murari Gupta to come. Murari Gupta came, and he showed him his form. Lord Chaitanya showed him his form of Lord Ramachandra. And Murari Gupta fainted. The same evening, it was Advaita Acharya's turn. He asked Advaita Acharya to give a class on Bhagavad Gita, because he's Advaita Acharya, he's a learned Brahmana. So he gave a very nice discussion. It's in Chaitanya Bhagavat, his narration of Bhagavad Gita for this ecstatic audience, and other devotees, Mukunda, etc., etc. This is described in the summary version is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The detailed version is in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So one evening at the house of Srivas, during the kirtan, his son died. And Srivas knew that his son had died, but he ordered that everyone should say nothing because he didn't want to disturb the kirtan. He had some disease, and in the course of that some disease, it became very acute that particular evening, and he died. Srivasa Thakura did not allow anyone to cry, for he did not want the kirtan going on in his house to be disturbed. So kirtan went on, and no one said anything. At the end of the kirtan, Mahaprabhu stopped and said there must have been some calamity in this house. And then it was informed, Srivas Pandit's son died. And Mahaprabhu wanted to know, how come no one said anything? So he went to the back room where the son was lying dead, placed his hand on the son's chest, and asked, why are you leaving the house of Srivasa Thakura? And the dead son sat up and replied, I was living in this house as long as I was destined to live here. Now the time is over. I am going elsewhere according to your direction. I am your eternal servant, a dependent living being. I must act only according to your desire. Beyond your desire, I cannot do anything. I have no such power. And he laid back down and was gone again. And everyone heard this exchange, and they were amazed. They're amazed that the dead son was brought back to life. They're amazed that their dead son was speaking transcendental knowledge. And their cause for lamentation was taken away by the words of Srivasa Thakura's son. Then Lord Chaitanya reassured Srivas, you have lost one son, but Nityananda and I are your eternal sons. We shall never be able to give up your company. Such affection did Lord Chaitanya have for Srivasa Thakura. Now there's another pastime. Some of you may know what this Ashta Kalya Lila meditation. It has to do with Krishna's pastimes in Goloka. I'm pointing on the upward direction. This is the upper Goloka. In the spiritual sky, Krishna doesn't manifest childhood pastimes. The form that is manifest, this is what our acharyas describe, he is the form of a fresh youth, eternally. He doesn't get old, he doesn't get young, he's eternally youthful. And during each day, there's 8 times of the day. You take 24 hours and divide 8 into 24, and for those 3-hour periods, he had certain types of pastimes. So during those types of pastimes, that's the Ashtakalya Lila. It's one of the glorifications or descriptions of Krishna's pastimes in Goloka. What he does during this time, what he does during that time, they're named for the different times when he's doing different activities. In ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Srivas to deliver his flute. He didn't have a flute, he's a sannyasi. But in his mood of being Krishna, he asked for his flute. Srivas replied, your flute has been stolen away by the gopis. Then Srivas described the transcendental mellows of the pastimes of Sri Vrindavan. In the morning, the Lord embraced Srivasa Thakura and satisfied him. That is to say, Srivas understood the divinity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, at this time, he wasn't a sannyasi yet. He was Nimai Pandit. But still, the language is the Lord. So the Lord was in a certain mood in the house of Srivas. Bring my flute. Where's my flute? And knowing his mood, your flute has been stolen by the gopis. And further discussion of the pastimes of the gopis stealing Krishna's flute. The next morning, his mood was different. He just embraced Srivas and satisfied him. Very intimate. Another time in the house of Srivas, Srivas was reciting the 1,000 names of Vishnu Sahasranam. And as he was reciting Vishnu Sahasranam, he came to the name of Lord Nrsingadev. And when he came to the name of Lord Nrsingadev, Nimai Pandit became very absorbed in the mood of Lord Nrsingadev. And he picked up a club and ran through the city streets, club in his hand, ready to kill atheists, roaring. And when people saw him coming with a club in his hand and roaring like that, they ran for their life, afraid of his mood and his anger. It didn't last too long. Seeing the people so afraid, the Lord came to his external senses and thus returned to the house of Srivasa Thakura, threw away the club. He said to Srivas, I stopped, since causing fear among people is an offense. And Srivas replied, anyone who takes your holy name vanquishes 10 million of his offenses immediately. There was no offense in your appearing as Nrsingadev. Rather, any man who saw you in that mood was immediately liberated from bondage of material existence. Saying this, Srivasa Thakura worshipped the Lord, who was then greatly satisfied and returned to his own home. So it's like a river, and sometimes the wave of the river goes up, and sometimes the wave of the river goes down, and sometimes it goes this way, and sometimes it goes that way. And the picture is, even before his mood as a transcendental personality of Godhead became manifest, from time to time, other than the mood of a young man who likes kirtan and is a Sanskrit scholar, he was exhibiting divinity. And when Srivas saw him exhibit that divinity, he knew how to augment it. He was vastly learned. He knew how to augment and enhance his pastime, at the same time respecting him as the personality of Godhead. Very unique relationship and very wonderful pastimes. There's another pastime connected to Devananda Pandit. Sir, if you want, you sit where you can see the screen. Can you see the screen? Okay, good. Okay. Your son can see the screen too. Good. And your daughter too. Fantastic. Devananda Pandit. So across the river from where they were residing is a place called Kulia. And in that place in Kulia, there was a Brahmana who would hold regular classes, discourses, expounding Mayavad philosophy. Srivasa Thakura was once present, and when he began to cry, Devananda's students drove him away. He was crying because how can you speak of the person as an imperson? It's offense. So it brought him to tears. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Devananda and chastised him severely because of his misrepresentation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Basically, it was a Bhagavatam class with an impersonal flavor. So he got chastised. At that time, Devananda had little faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an incarnation of Krishna, but one night there was a devotee of Lord Chaitanya named Vikreshwara Pandit who was a guest in Devananda Pandit's home. And when Vikreshwara Pandit, explained the science of Krishna, Devananda Pandit became convinced not only of the personality of Godhead who is taught about in the Bhagavatam, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Person. Just by that association of Vikreshwara Pandit, an very advanced devotee, Devananda Pandit did a 180. He got completely turned around. And from that time on, he was following the method of Vikreshwara Pandit and explaining the Bhagavatam in a personal way. All of this is discussed in Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, we heard a little bit about Kolabechar Sridhar's maintenance. What was Srivasa Thakura's maintenance? He's a Brahmana. One day, Mahaprabhu asked Srivasa Pandit why he didn't endeavor at all to feed and clothe his extended family. How would he maintain their livelihood? In reply, Srivasa Pandit said that he did not wish to go anywhere to earn money, for whatever was destined would certainly happen. And then Mahaprabhu chastised, "You should take sannyas." Srivasa Pandit replied, "I cannot do that." "Then how can you maintain your family members?" And Srivasa Pandit clapped his hands 3 times. 1, 2, 3. That was his answer. Mahaprabhu asked him, "What's the meaning of this?" He said, "If I do not get any food, even after fasting for 3 consecutive days, then I will tie a heavy pitcher to my neck and jump into the Ganges." As soon as Mahaprabhu heard Srivasa's word, he roared loudly and said, "Even if Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, happens to beg, you will not be affected by poverty. Did you forget my words in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who thinks of me without deviation, ananyas chinta, I supply what they lack and preserve what they have, for someone who is personally maintained by the Supreme Maintainer of the entire universe, what anxiety will he have for food and cloth? I give you the benediction that even if you sit at home, all ingredients for Krishna's service will automatically come to you." No, that's not for most of us, for any of us. But it's a particular relationship between these two personalities, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the ideal Brahmana, Srivasa Thakura. In Jagannath Puri, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas, he shifted to Jagannath Puri at the request of his mother. And during Kirtan, there was an event described that the king who was watching the Kirtan, Srivasa was standing in front of him. And Srivasa was really ecstatic seeing the dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And seeing that Srivasa was standing before the king, the servant of the king touched Srivasa on the shoulder several times and requested him to step aside so the king can see Lord Chaitanya. Absorbed in watching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance, Srivasa could not understand why he was being touched and pushed. He was pushed again and again. He became angry. Srivasa slapped Harishchandra to stop him from pushing. This is like, Harishchandra is like a strong man, the guard protecting the king. And the guard protecting the king is, his little Brahmin. Please get out of the way so the king can see this dancing. And pushing and slapped him. So Harishchandra didn't like that. As the angered Harishchandra was about to speak to Srivas, Prataparudra personally stopped him and said, "You're very fortunate. You are very fortunate, for you have been graced by the touch of Srivasa Thakura. I am not so fortunate. You should feel obliged to him." The king was very devoted to Lord Chaitanya, and being devoted to Lord Chaitanya means being devoted to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, and in particular Srivas, who were observing his appearance day to day, was very dear to him. During this period of time, there's a festival, a Harapanchami festival, or Lakshmi Vijayotsava festival, where the deity of Lakshmi is inside the Singhadwar gate of the Jagannath Mandir. She's dressed and attired in a certain way. And then from the altar, the deity, the Utsav Murti of Lakshmi, is taken from the altar and taken in procession. Srivasa Thakura, enjoying the mood of Narada Muni, smiled and told Swarup Damodar, "Just see how opulent my goddess of fortune is. Your gopis are engaged in boiling milk and churning yogurt. My mistress, the goddess of fortune, sits on a throne made of jewels and gems." Srivas, speaking to the number one assistant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar replies, Srivasa Thakura then, Swarup Damodar, made a lengthy description of the opulences in Vrindavan. There's this and that and the other and the other and the other and the other and the other. Because the opulences of Vrindavan, just like the opulences of the goddess of fortune, are the manifestations of Narayana, and the opulences in Vrindavan are the manifestation of the opulences of Krishna and his female associates, the gopis. Hearing Swarup Damodar's description of the opulences of Vrindavan, Srivasa Thakura started dancing in ecstasy. He vibrated sounds by slapping his armpits with the palms of his hands, and he laughed very loudly. He liked teasing Swarup Damodar in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when he gave the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is the mood of Vrindavan, he liked it very much. So here's the deity. This is the end of our presentation. This is the deity on a certain day on the far right of the Panchatattva altar. And here's our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, who made the Sridham Mayapur temple established. Now just the last several days in Dallas, I was reading Chasing the Rhinos with the Swami, which is a biography by one of Prabhupada's disciples named Shyamasundar, and he gives his account of what it was like in Mayapur when Prabhupada went to get land. He was very keen simultaneously on a substantial temple in Mayapur, substantial temple in Vrindavan, and substantial temple in Bombay. Those are three. There are many other things going on, but those are three main projects that were occupying his attention. And during that particular time, it was a dangerous situation, without going into it too much. Naxalites, the Communist Party had gotten traction in West Bengal, and there was a particular brand of Communist Party that moved away from Russian communism to Chinese communism, and they were very violent. And Naxalites, because that's the place where they were headquarters, a place that has a name like that. And they were wild. There was a Pandal program where Prabhupada spoke, and they had to hide. Chairs were flying in the air. They were vicious people. They took Prabhupada off stage and took him through a flap off the stage to hit him. And even with all of that, with this intense activity, Prabhupada was fearless, and he wanted to establish a significant place of worship of Lord Chaitanya in Mayapur. And anyway, there's details and details and details. It started with a lot of difficulty. With not just the Naxalites, the villagers, and anyway, without all the whole shebang. The establishing of temples in India was not easy for many, many reasons. Different places, different reasons. And with great spiritual Shakti, Prabhupada managed to establish these temples. And now they're well established and glorious, but the beginning part was Wild West. It was very, very, very risky. But on behalf of his spiritual master, he forged forward and met the challenges, and now we have the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful temple. That was at that time. Many of us went for the grand opening. It was grand opening. It was like laying the cornerstone was a big, big thing, and then the grand opening. And the grand opening was just one building. Now it's like mega buildings. But anyway, lots of difficulty to get started, and once it was started, the momentum continued and continued and continued, and is still continuing. The way back when, Prabhupada took the devotees to the place on the other side. Baliganj is the name of the place, where the rooftop from which Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this vision, where he looked on the other side of the river Jamuna, river Ganga, and saw a very tall, bright tower. He showed the other people with him to see it, rising high in the sky. He saw it twice. And he concluded the birthplace of Mahaprabhu was over there, not over here. Anyway, a lot of history. But there, even today, the Temple of Vedic Planetarium is still in the planning stages. There's a whole group of devotees that have been newly entrusted with this responsibility by the GBC to have the model of the planetarium, because it's got to be right. Because scholars from all over the world are going to come there with their particular view. And their particular view isn't going to necessarily be the Bhagavatam view. So how to get the Bhagavatam view right? Read the 5th canto and try to scratch your head and figure it out. Anyway, the plan for the Temple of Vedic Planetarium is still underway. And it's going to be a major, 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 major contribution to that Prabhupada's followers are making at his request to depict the 5th canto Bhagavatam. So empiric information in a 3-dimensional exhibit with how they're going to do it with all the text and copy and voices, and press a button and they'll explain everything in different languages, and shoo. impressive and big challenge. So that's all of that's just come from seeing this nice picture of Srila Prabhupada. Big smile. And Srivas Pandit, his appearance date today. Let's see if there's some discussion. Look at it's already 8:25. Any comments or questions? Yes.
He's Narada basically, and he's Nitya Siddha. You said he's a Jeev Tattva basically, and he's a Nitya Siddha. So I was trying to understand the differentiation between Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha. And is there any possibility of a Nitya Baddha converting into Nitya Siddha ever?
Yeah. It depends, how you or I or anyone takes the term nitya. How can a nitya baddha become a nitya siddha? My answer was very quick, yes. Then comes the question, to say yes. A living entity that's conditioned can become liberated, can become perfect. And one who has misused their free will to the extent that they are conditioned lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. I was just listening to Prabhupada just in the third canto Sankhya section of the Bhagavatam, describing the word anadi. It means anadi, literally means without beginning. And Prabhupada explained anadi can mean before creation. So what existed before creation, that's anadi. You can't say when it began. Anadi. And that because creation has beginning. And things that aren't part of creation, they're anadi, without creation, without beginning. So that's the nitya position. So one can apply that nitya siddha or nitya baddha. But nitya is before creation. Creation has beginning. So to restate your question in different language, can living entities who have misused their free will correctly use their free will? Can they be restored to correct use of free will? If the answer is no, then we're wasting our time. And Krishna is lying. And neither are true. We're not wasting our time and Krishna is not lying. One can restored. A sleeping man can be awakened. A person who is anesthetized, when the anesthesia wears off, can become fully awake. So the difficulty in the question, your question, is the word nitya. Can one who is bound become perfect? Yes. But you put the adjective nitya, and then it puts the question mark. Can one who is nitya this become nitya that? Because nitya means nitya. Then the definition is needed. What does nitya mean? In different contexts, it can mean one thing or another thing. Just like anadi can mean one thing, beginningless, literally beginningless. Or another can mean before creation. Because with creation, that's adi. And that which is existing before creation is anadi. This is another definition. Same. I'm trying to respond reasonably to your question. Depends on how you define nitya. Everlastingly conditioned can't become everlastingly anything other than conditioned. and everlastingly liberated or perfect can't become anything other than everlastingly perfect, because that's by definition, or a definition of the word nitya. Then there could be another one. That question, your question, begs another question. How does living entity become conditioned? The fall of the jiva question. You want to use the microphone? Because there may be somebody remote listening or something like that.
Sorry. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I was looking at the Leela that you were mentioning about it. I was watching Srivasa Thakur's devotion to Sri Nityananda Prabhuji. So I just want to ask, who should be more respected, a guru or a Lord himself?
Who is more respected?
Yeah.
They're equally respected.
Importance-wise, who should be more important?
The Supreme Lord. But we don't have access to the Supreme Lord except through the representative of the Supreme Lord. So equally. But one leads to the other, not vice versa. The speaker of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna. The Guru is one who speaks what Krishna says and nothing else. So the more important is Krishna, but equally important is the representative of Krishna who speaks what Krishna says. And then, if necessary, or as necessary, explain. This means this, and that means that. So explaining, that's the function. But it's the person that's the more important person is he who is the source of everything. Bhagavan. Okay?
In quest of
The who am I question.
Yeah. So in quest of understanding who am I this body made of the five elements. So when I say I am not, when I say this to myself, I am not this body. What I'm trying to understand, who is saying this, that I am not this body?
Ah, that's a nice question.
Could you please help me to understand? And I have a follow-up question, maybe I can ask
Oh,
it.
yeah. But why don't you hold the microphone? We got some more questions. You hold the microphone, but turn the button off. Let me respond to your question by asking a parallel question, similar, but not identical. The mind. The mind may be thinking this thought or that thought. And based upon the thinking this thought, that thought, there may be some emotion that says I like or I don't like. You know, it may be anger or maybe fear, or maybe frustration, maybe. So there's the emotion, and there's the distraction of the mind going here, going there, and then there's the observer. So am I the observer, or that activity that's going on in the mind, or the mind itself? Because there's three things. So I'm the observer. And then there's the observer of the observer. Upadrashta. And the observer, that's super soul. So I can't do any of those things without the sanction of super soul. But back to your question. If who is that I that says I am not this body? That's the soul. The seat of consciousness is the one that's saying that, or Krishna is saying that, and one who says that because Krishna says that. That's the seat of consciousness. So the self, the soul, that's self-realization. Distinguishing that who I am not from who I am. I'm the conscious self within. Not the body, and not the mind, not the emotions within the mind. For your information, while in Dallas, I spent 3 classes discussing this topic. The heading, who am I? So I'm very familiar with the territory. And it's an important question. Here's to amplify your question. This is there's a little audio clip where Prabhupada is being interviewed by the New York Post, many years ago. And so it's a radio interview. Swamiji, reporter, Swamiji, you came to this country with much difficulty, and it must be that you've come to give a certain message to the people in our country. Could you share with us what that message is? Lead-in question, right? And Prabhupada, 3 words. No, 2 words. Know yourself. Pause. Reporter. Know yourself. Pause. Prabhupada. Know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, the purpose of this human form of life is to know yourself. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Vedanta Sutra, first sutra. Now achieving this human form of life. Inquire. Who am I? Know who you are. And without that, anything is going to be wrong. Anything else you think you know or you do, it's misdirected. So it's very fun, very important. And it's not easy to understand. I mean, it's easy to say, then it's another thing to live one's life accordingly. That's the self-realized soul. Okay, now your second question.
Thank you very much. I think you kind of touched the follow-up question also, Prabhuji. My just adding to that, I mean, I understand it is important to understand who am I not, the neti concept. Taking to the next one, Jiva, Jagat, and Brahman, or soul, Maya, and Paramatma. How do you see how these 3 are related?
How are they related?
Yeah, and how Jiva can transcends to the Brahman. What is the source for that Jiva can use?
Well, as we already discussed with his question, the Brahman can have different meanings. Brahman can mean the liberated soul. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasoshatin. It can mean the jiva that's liberated. Brahman, in a broader sense, can mean the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. And in another sense, Brahman can mean Parabrahman, without saying the Param first, but can mean, so it can have different meanings depending upon application and context. So your question, I need some context, please. That jiva, this is a definition that Prabhupada has given, and it's not like a universal one. In all circumstances, this fits. But a definition is a jiva who is misidentifying with the covering, and Brahman, as in the Brahma Bhuta stage, is no longer identifying with the covering.
Maybe I can add this, just to clarify my question. I'm getting into, if you can help me to, I understand this is like maybe 2-3 days topic, is just topic.
Yeah, philosophical.
Achintya Bheda Bhed Darshan. How it relates to that, and if you can help us to understand that.
Which one?
Achintya Bheda Bhed Darshan.
Okay. We have some new people in the audience, and I might lose a few new people, like all the new people. But I'll give a simple answer to something that requires more than simple to explain. An example that Prabhupada would commonly give is the sunshine and the sun. So they're inseparable. And that's, in their sense, they're one. The sunshine and the sun. That which comes from the sun is sunshine. The sunshine doesn't exist as separate from the sun. The sun doesn't exist separate from the sunshine. They're one. And yet, in that relationship, one is the source and the other is from the source. They're still in the Brahman category, but one is the source and the other is from the source. So they're different. We can't say, another common example, heat and light. It indicates fire. You don't have heat or you don't have light without fire. When you have fire, you have heat and light. But the heat is not the fire. The light is not the fire. It's from the fire. So there's a oneness and difference. And then you can take that principle and apply it anywhere. There's the oneness is that everything comes from its source. Everything. This little doodad. There's a source. And you can say this source, and then where did that come from? Where'd that come? Where'd that come from? There's the ultimate source of everything. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak. So Krishna is the source of everything. So there's a oneness between that which is the source of everything and everything. And there's a difference. One is the source and the other is from the source. And then from the source, there can be different, there are many different categories of what's from the source. There's personal expansions. And there's a oneness and there's a difference. Then there's energetic expansions. There's energy and the energetic. The energy is not the energetic. And so forth. There's different ways of the expansions from the source have a oneness, but a difference from that source. And they're differences of the oneness between, like, say, personal expansions and this little doodad. Separated material energies combined in a certain way, making something that's from the source. So then it gets into philosophy and what are the categories of the expansions. And then there's very, very elaborate discussion in Chaitanya Charitamrita in particular, categories of expansions, and then back to oneness and difference. I can see you're a philosopher. No?
Yes. Hare Krishna, Swamiji.
They're a patient one.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. So I just wanted to ask you to share any memorable story of your time with Prabhupada and what we can learn from that memorable story that you have.
There's many.
Many, yeah.
One comes to mind that as soon as I say one, then 10 will come to mind. The one that comes to mind was in Vrindavan. And have you been to Vrindavan? Oh. And what Vrindavan looked like when Prabhupada was there, with the Krishna Balaram Mandir and the area around it, it was away from the crowd. Now it's in the crowd because it's all built up and rickshaws and shops and noise and blah, 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 loudspeakers. Then it was just agricultural fields. You walk out the front gate, agricultural fields. That's not what's there now. You go down to the right, agricultural fields. It was just agricultural fields. And we're off in the middle of an agricultural field, and it had Krishna Balaram Mandir. So every morning, in a very regulated way, Prabhupada would leave his quarters at 6 o'clock and walk to the front gate, make a right-hand turn, and go for his morning walk. And there's a reason behind that. Prabhupada had 2 heart attacks. And then when he got to America, within a year, he had his 3rd. The doctor, he went to a convalescence place in New Jersey, and the doctor said, "You got to change some habits here, or you're finished." So one of those was this morning walk, So he did a morning walk. So out the front gate, down to the right, agricultural fields in all directions. But there's a pathway. The pathway, he told us, it's the path that Krishna would take the cowherd boys every day, called the Raman Reti. There's an area of Vrindavan where the road is given that name also. It's a place where Krishna would herd the cows. So we went for the morning walk, and at a certain time, it was always at the same spot. It was just inspiration, and Prabhupada turned around and started going back to the temple for greeting the deities at 7 o'clock. So as we're walking back towards the temple, we could hear in the distance that at the gate, the devotees were having kirtan. So Prabhupada asked a question, "Where are all the devotees?" And somebody boldly said, one of the persons with us said, "They're at the gate, Prabhupada, waiting for you to come back and having kirtan." But they didn't get the point. Prabhupada understood that. That's why he asked the question. And then he looked around and said, when there's opportunity for personal association, one should seek it eagerly. That's what he meant. Where are the devotees? There were very few on that particular morning walk. Where are all the devotees? And then he looked around, and then a few more steps, and then put his cane down on the pavement and said, when there's physical association or vapu, you'll also receive vani. And of the two, vani is more important than vapu. Then a couple more steps and said, and when there's not physical association, there's vani, because it's actually the best association with the spiritual master. He looked around and continued the walk. Then another morning, same Vrindavan morning walk, Prabhupada speaking about preaching, expanding the Hare Krishna movement. And he explained the principle of preaching was you see a little interest, and he moved his hand like this, and you fan the spark. And then not too much, you put the spark out. But gently fan the spark. And fanning the spark becomes a flame, that's preaching. And then he said, and expert preaching is that flame becomes a big blaze. And his eyes got really big. Looked around. That's preaching. And we're meant to fan the spark and make a blaze. It's very simple. Very simple. And he had a way of making things simple. There's others, but here's one in New York. Similar morning walk. Morning walk. We went to the Battery Park in Brooklyn. And in one place in Battery Park, there's a pond. And we were walking along, and we saw the pond. Prabhupada made a beeline for the pond. Large pond, big, like kind of mini lake. And as we walked towards the lake or pond, then there were ducks, and they saw us coming, and they came running forward, or like, swimming forward. And Prabhupada asked, does anybody have any prasadam? And somebody had some prasadam. He said, feed the ducks. And then so they fed the ducks, and the ducks were, eager to get the prasadam, with the understanding that it's spiritual benefit for the ducks to get Krishna prasadam. And then we walked, a couple blocks away, and Prabhupada then asked the question, what lesson did we learn this morning? And we all looked at each other like, what? And he said, the lesson is, the duck that quacks the loudest gets the bread. He didn't explain, but it was easy to understand what he was saying. We have to be eager for mercy of Krishna, and when you're eager for the mercy of Krishna, you get the mercy of Krishna, naturally. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
No, not so loud, please.
Okay.
Just a little further away from your mouth. Yeah.
So I have a question,
Okay,
and
good.
that is, all these gurus, Ved Vyas, Valmiki, Vashisht, Vishwamitra, why do their names all start with the V sound? Is it like for a reason, or is it like this?
I couldn't follow. Could you have a good, clear voice. Could you understand what he said? Repeat what he said without the microphone. Just repeat what he said.
He said that all these rishis like Vashisht, Ved Vyas, all these great rishis, their name starts with the word alphabet V, like the letter V.
Oh, is there something special with the letter V? That's what he wants to know? Yeah, I figured that out. When he was sitting behind, his father turned to his son and said, well, there's lots of other letters besides V that of important personalities. G, Gauranga, N, Nityananda, B, Balaram. There's many other vowels besides V. So V's a nice one, but there's many other nice ones. There's nothing special about that sound that makes it like, special people get a name with a V at the front. If I've understood the question properly. Okay. Okay, anything else on the ladies' side? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.